Hey, this is Ian, and I want to welcome you to the Detective Hawk Games podcast. On today's show, we're going to be talking a little bit about gaming terminology. We're specifically going to focus on cooperative board games. For those of you that have never played a cooperative board game, this is the podcast for you. We're going to kind of dive into what those actually are and how they differ from competitive board games. So let's just talk about the two different types of games to start off. So competitive board games are the types of games that you find in your mass market toy shops or the department stores, that kind of thing. A lot of those games are the ones that you will play with your family or your friends at various holidays, and one person wins those games and everybody else is a loser of the game. Those kinds of games are fun. We play here at Detective Hawk Games those types of games, but we also play cooperative board games. So cooperative board games fall into two categories: strategic cooperatives and then adventure-driven narrative cooperatives. So they're both just a little bit different from one another. I'm going to kind of talk about the two different types by illustrating those types of games. Strategic cooperative games are the type of games such as Pandemic that came out in 2008, and 1 to 4 players get together and you have to actually cure 4 diseases spread across a world map. The goal really is for one player, and it can be any one of the players at the table, to gain 5 cards of one color and then move their player token to a research station and then turn in those 5 cards. That cures the disease. One of the things about cooperative games is that they are good puzzle games where you all have to work together to solve the puzzle, but they also have a lot of rules, and those rules are designed to test you. So in cooperative games, you will find that you will lose those games more often than you'll actually win them. Pandemic's a good example. So you can actually lose Pandemic in 3 different ways. So in cooperatives, you either lose the game or win the game as an entire group. So that incentivizes working together with other players as opposed to just being competitive, trying to win the game for yourself. The other type of games that are out there for cooperatives are adventure narrative-driven cooperatives. And to kind of illustrate that style of game, we're going to talk a little bit about Sleeping Gods. So Sleeping Gods in our next podcast will be the featured game playthrough that we do. It's really a narrative-driven story where all the players take on roles of the characters. And so there are 9 characters. And in fact, you play all 9 characters regardless of how many players are actually playing the game. So you just divide the characters up evenly. They are all involved in the story. The background of the story is that you're on a ship called the Manticore. It has left Hong Kong and is heading to New York. It's in the 1920s, so in about a day or two out of Hong Kong, the boat disappears and it lands in a brand new world of the Sleeping Gods. So the goal of this game is to actually get all these different totems from all around the atlas. Your game board itself is actually a book, and the book has maybe 5 or 6 spaces on it. And as you move to the edge of each area of the book, you actually turn to a new page, which actually moves you around the atlas. In the locations on the atlas, which are very nicely designed, there's numbers. And those numbers reference numbers in a much bigger book of the narrative story that you're actually going to read through and make decisions as a group how you're going to solve different situations. Some of those explorers are going to be puzzles that you're going to solve. Some of them you're going to find a couple enemies you're going to have to deal with. And it's figuring out how the skill sets of the team members that you have in front of you work best with the activity that you're trying to solve. We really like these story-driven games. I'm a video game person, so I like an actual narrative story. And that's what one of these nice things about cooperative story-driven games is that you can have a group of people together working on a story at the same time. Now, the granddaddy of all these types of story games is Dungeons and Dragons. That's a really involved game where you're actually going to work with other people, and the game master and the dungeon master will actually create the story that you as a team are working through. A lot of the games we play here at Detective Hawk Games are actually board games that kind of emulate that idea a little bit, but they have the story already built into the game itself. We're playing right now Sleeping Gods, and we are going to do a gaming playthrough this so that you can kind of see how this type of game is playing. In future episodes, We're going to dive into what campaign games are. Sleeping Gods is a campaign game, but also what legacy games are in cooperatives. And then we're also going to look at various other types of gaming terminology. If you have suggestions, leave them in the comments of different things that we can talk about. And we hope you guys get to the table, and we'll see you real soon. Thanks.